Welcome to the Sheridan Report, brought to you by MyBookie.AG. MyBookie.AG, you can find them by going to the top of the GrillingTruth.com page. Click on the banner and it'll give you up to 100% cashback bonus up to your first $300 deposit. I am your co-host for the Sheridan Report, Mike Goodpasser. Right now, I'd like to welcome in from the Sheridan Report, Bobby Sheridan. How you doing, Bobby?
Mike, I'm doing great, and I'm very thankful to the NBA that it's been going so well for us and covering some inconsistent baseball. But we're going to come right back with baseball today and have a good day, I think.
But we want to start off with the NBA, correct, Bobby?
We do, Mike. I want to start off with the NBA because, these series are very interesting. And yesterday, Philadelphia came back and the Sixers played a great game too, and they held on there at the end, and that got a little scary there for a moment, but they held on and got the straight up win at plus 243 was the highest mark I saw, got the money line at, and that was a nice win. And Denver, Mike, Denver did a good job last night. They played good defense and had a great second half, and so those series went how we thought, and let's keep that momentum going because I think today, much like yesterday, I have a lean in one game and then a top play in the other. And let's go with the lean first. That's Milwaukee hosting Boston. And, the game one, wow. I mean, I think that one may have been the biggest surprise of the whole playoffs, don't you think? I mean, Milwaukee, the number one seed, and they looked so dominant in their first round, although they played not much of an opponent in Detroit who had limped into the playoffs. And the Celtics, had dispatched Indiana pretty easily. But I think that game was probably the biggest surprise, a 20-point Celtics win, as we've seen. And I think we're going to find out just what the Bucks are made of tonight. And, Mike, I think you and I both agree they're a pretty darn good team.
Yeah.
And, and we've talked about it. And now it's their, we used a word yesterday, adjustment. And now we did that touting the Sixers. And now it's the Bucks' turn to adjust to what the Celtics did to them and specifically how they guarded their star, Antetokounmpo. And, Milwaukee is not just him. They're very deep and they're a very good team. And let's give them a shot here today. Coming back and the zigzag theory a little bit working here. And we'll take the team that lost last game and see if they can tie this up at home. Laying 7.5 points is not something I like to do, and it's not something I do often, but let's lay it today. And this is a lean, Mike, not a big play, but I lean to the Bucks. Do you have an opinion here?
I think the Bucks will win the game. The 7.5 points scares the hell out of me here. That's a lot of points.
It is a lot of points. They're making it pay to try to go 1-1 here because, they know the bettors are going to lean probably this way, but it'll be the first time I read it, so I'm not going to be perfect. I don't have it in front of me, but I think it'll be the first time in 12 years that the number one seed would go down 2-0 at home in the second round. It just doesn't happen.
I'm not worried about the 2-0. I think it'll be 1-1. It's just a point.
Okay, well, let's have some faith, and this is a slight lean for me. All right, let's switch over to the game that I think is a top play, and that's the Rockets over Golden State. And, in game one, we had the Rockets, and anytime you lose and cover, it just, especially in the playoffs, it feels like you just got lucky. We Spurs, that happened that way for us on the Spurs in game 7. It happened that way for us with Utah against Houston when they covered the 8.5. And, Mike, it happened last game with Houston against Golden State, getting the 5.5, 6 points in that game one. But let's look at it in another way. Golden State had every opportunity to kind of pull forward in that game, and I just don't think they're capable. I don't think any team is really capable of blowing the other team out. And it's going to be this kind of a series all the way through, a really tight series. So points are going to be very meaningful. If anything, I think Houston has a chance when they go home to maybe lay a double-digit win on Golden State. Golden State just has not been a home team that you want to back all year. They were fortunate to win Game 1, even though Houston played sort of a very average game. They did get a big game from Gordon. It's about defense and about style here. You know, you're a big boxing guy. Some fights, just the styles, you know, don't match. You don't get a really beautiful fight out of it. And maybe that's what we have here, the styles. But I think that favors Houston. And, you know, they lost Game 1, although they covered. And they got to win here, Mike. You know, they don't want to fall down 2-0 and have to win 4 of the next 5. They've won here 3 times in the last year, basically in the playoffs. In the regular season. Between last year and the regular season, they've won in this building 3 times. And then they got another shot tonight. So I like them. I think they feel like they were jobbed in the first game, and I don't like to have the officials play such a big role. But once they tip it off, I don't think it's going to be too much of a deal, and I think it's going to be more about who plays more effectively tonight. And I think Houston's a better team. I'm going to stick with them. I think they get the straight-up win tonight, Mike.
All right, Bobby. You want to talk a little NHL?
Yeah, I want to go to the NHL. We got game 3s tonight in 2 series, and I want to get your opinion on both.
I actually like the favorites in both games, which I don't like to like. Columbus is not by a lot. I think they're minus 115. Colorado's minus 130. But when I look at this, I think Columbus is going to be too much for Boston at home. I think Columbus is going to win this series. I said it at the start. I think the Avalanche is going to win this series against the Sharks. I said that one at the start also. And when you look at this, I mean, the advantage here goes with Colorado because they don't have to sub first because they're the home team, which is the big thing. I think they're going to be able to get even better matchups than what they had in the first 2 games. So when you look at that, I think everything here screams Colorado to me. I think Colorado wins this game, and I think Colorado ends up winning this series. So with that, you'd probably want to put a top play to go with it to get better value.
Yeah, I think I'd like to run 2 favorites together here. And if you're just a hockey guy, then you can stick with just that and come up with a decent payout for a 2-teamer. But me, I would probably run a top play with these 2 and make a 3-teamer out of it. I would probably put you could put the Rockets because that would be a minus 110 and take the 5.5 points. Or you can go ahead and take a baseball. I've got a top play coming up in baseball that I would suggest you can put with both of these and come up with a really nice 3-teamer.
Well, how about this? Let's just go ahead straight to baseball. We can figure that out for everybody.
Let's go straight to baseball, Mike. Tonight they're same formula basically from what we've been having. We have our 3 mix and match, and we have our 3 dogs that we like as the best 3 dogs on the card. And tonight's no different. And I'm going to go to we'll finish with the parlay. We'll switch it up today. Let's go to our straight plays. First straight play, Mike, we got the Blue Jays. This is an interesting game. They're coming to Anaheim tonight, and they just defeated Oakland A's on the last trip they came here to the West Coast. They beat them 2 out of 3 or all 3. Maybe all 3, Mike. They may have swept the A's, and that kind of sent the A's on a tailspin, which is continuing now. They got blasted last night in Boston, and so the Blue Jays are a team really playing good baseball. Then they come home after that trip, and they get the top prize rookie, Guerrero Jr., added to the lineup, and he doesn't, he's 2 for 8, I think, in his first 3 games. Nothing spectacular, but they're 3-0. That's more important. And he's coming to Anaheim where his dad was a star for 6-8 years after his career. So I've gone to games, Mike. I used to work at baseball camp, helping Mark Cressy, and he would take the kids to Anaheim Stadium for a game every year. And we'd get to go in there early during batting practice because, Cressy is really close to Scioscia, and they coached all those years together with the Dodgers. And we'd get in there, and I was a coach there. We're talking young kids now, youth age kids. And we'd watch Vladimir do his thing, and his kid would be out there in the field with him. And, I mean, it's just amazing. This kid is now the young superstar he is. And they're coming to Anaheim tonight, and they're going to throw a veteran, Clay Buchholz, this is maybe his 15th appearance against the Angels. And the Angels are going to go with their prize rookie, a kid named Canning something. I don't even know if that's the first name or the last name, but he's done a great job rising up through their system. And they're going to go ahead and put him in the rotation tonight, Mike. It's a big start for him, and he's from Orange County. He's a local kid making his first start, and he went to UCLA. So I'm just going to go ahead and take the value here, take the veteran, and take the hot team and the team that's hit the ball more consistently well. So I like the road team, and I really like the fact that they beat the A's in Oakland 3 times. That was enough for me. So I'm going to take Toronto to take game 1.
Well, and the thing is, if you put it with the 2 hockey games, you get almost 7-1.
Yeah, that's a really nice payoff. And we have 2 other dogs that you might want to consider that might be as strong or stronger. It's up to how you feel about it. And this is, I always put it into the hands of the bettor and give them some ideas. And okay, let's go game 2, and it's about the same price, right at plus $1.30. And this is the Mariners tonight over the Cubs, and this is a home dog spot. And this is a spot where I wouldn't have been on this spot, but it's changing landscapes, Mike. Felix Hernandez, King Felix, who's been their ace for years and years, is now their number 5. In the last couple of years, he's kind of thrown like a 5, but they're in debt to this guy for another few years at a lot of money. They gave him a big contract 3 years ago to keep him there when he was still kind of King Felix. But you know, Mike, he's had a resurgence this year. He's had some great outings, not pitching like a 5 this year. He's pitching like maybe a 1 or a 2, or something like that. His last outing in San Diego was spectacular. Pitched and didn't get the win. We had the Padres that day, and we're very lucky to beat him. He went something like 8 innings, 2 hits, 8 strikeouts, 1 walk, and got the loss. It was unbelievable. It was a leadoff home run from a leadoff in an inning from Ian Kinsler. He led off the 3rd, and the score was 1-0 all the way through. So in games that he had done that, his record as a Mariner was 89-7. So this is the game he's coming off of. He's had some extra rest, as a 5 pitcher does often. And he's a home dog tonight and going to give them a big shot. They need to have a big win tonight, Mike, because they're coming off of back-to-back losses to the Rangers, which we had the Rangers both times. And so they need to have a day off yesterday and come out and play well against the National League team coming in. Now, the Cubs, I think, are overrated in this spot. Cole Hamels has pitched well for them. He's pitched like an ace, and the Cubs get a lot of backing. They're much like the Dodgers. They're a little bit overvalued. And I think as a home dog here with Hernandez, you've got a big shot. Okay, so that's plus 130. Now let's go to the top play. And this is a game the Pirates are facing the Rangers tonight. And let me pull that up, Mike, real quick. The Pirates and the Rangers.
I got a minus 110 for both of them right now.
Yeah. See, my bookie's taking a 20-cent line, a 20-cent difference on the juice, and Las Vegas is 10 cents. So yesterday when I made this bet, Pittsburgh was like plus 102, something like that, and they've gone to it's like still they're like minus 02 now, which would put the favorite at minus 08. So there's still a slight dog there. But see, when you lay 20 cents, they make them both 110, and that's where they take the extra juice.
Yeah.
But you got Lyles tonight for Pittsburgh, who this is his 5th or 6th start. All but one have been outstanding. His strikeout to walks is something like 24-5, 28-5. He's given up less hits than innings pitched, and he's going to go and pitch against Texas's number 5, who's only in the rotation because of an injury to Edinson Volquez. So this is a really good spot for Pittsburgh to break their 8-game losing streak. So we got 2 teams tonight, Pittsburgh and the game we just mentioned.
Seattle.
Seattle trying to break losing streaks with pitchers that are going to give them an opportunity to do that. So I like this matchup, Mike. This is a Lyles pitching like about a number 2 against Sampson, who's a number 6 for Texas, and who does not have a major league win under his belt. So, and the thing about the National League, and we may not have this starting next year because the DH might be gone, Mike, But the thing that we still have is that when the National League does interleague, they get to add a hitter when they go to the American League ballpark, and that really lengthens their lineup. And then but conversely, when the American League team goes to the National League ballpark, they lose a hitter. They lose their DH, which oftentimes is one of their best hitters. And so you got interesting situations when the American League has to go to the National League. So I think this interleague stuff has favored the National League. But like I said, that might be it. I'm hearing pretty strongly that they're going to do away with the DH.
All right. What do you got for the parlay?
And so parlay, we got 3 teams. Those are 3 solid dogs. Now the parlay, we got 3 games: a 4 o'clock, a 4 o'clock, and a 6 o'clock hour. Let's hit them for you. We got the Reds in the 4 o'clock hour. That's Castillo, their ace. The Astros in the 4 o'clock hour. That's Cole coming back from his matchup with Bauer that he got beat 3-2. We got Cole. And the Diamondbacks with Zach Greinke. And what I just mentioned, talk about a hot team, the Yankees. They just swept the Giants, but they got to go into Arizona now without the availability of the DH and getting an injury to their third baseman, Urshela. And they got to deal with Zach Greinke, who has been pitching and playing like Zach Greinke. So we like the D-backs. There's our 3 mix and match: the Reds, Astros, and D-backs, all favorites.
All right, Bobby. What do we got for on this day?
All right, Mike. Let's go on this day. And 1976, Muhammad Ali beats Jimmy Young in 15 for the heavyweight boxing title.
Yes, he did. You want to talk about that?
I do. Anytime I can talk boxing with you, Mike, is a treat for me.
And that was on ABC. And I remember watching this. And the interesting thing is, I had my tonsils taken out around this time, so I couldn't do anything. And the story is this. My family, well, it's not just ice cream, because I've still got this blender, too, because after my mom and dad passed away, I kept a blender. But the blender we ate steak a lot. And to my dad, he loved steak. So what he did is, I couldn't eat steak then, but he had bought steak. So he went out and he got a blender and actually blended the steak so I could eat it.
Oh, to make it soft and like kind of torn up and
yeah. So I can still eat the steak.
What a good dad you had.
Yeah, and I remember watching this, and the thing about it is, a lot of people think that Jimmy Young won this fight. Ali came in at like 230 pounds, which was the heaviest he ever was for a fight until his final fight in Nassau in the Bahamas in 1981 against Trevor Berbick, where he weighed 236. And prior to this bout, Ali's trainer, Angelo Dundee, had put a message up to Ali saying, "Remember San Diego." And that was March of 1973. He fought Ken Norton, who nobody really knew who he was. He came in, he trained lightly, he was overweight, and he lost a split decision to Ken Norton. That's the fight where he got his jaw broke. All right, so he's fighting Jimmy Young. And Jimmy Young, most people don't know who Jimmy Young is at the time. Ali's previous fight was against Jean-Pierre Koopman, and this was 2 months before. The interesting thing about this is Ali fought Koopman February 20th. He fought Young at the end of April. And then 3 weeks later, he fought Richard Dunn in Munich. And, I mean, this is not one of those, these days, if a guy fights twice, it's considered a lot. And Jimmy Young was a very skilled boxer. And when he was on the top of his game, he's a guy that a year later sent George Foreman into retirement. We talked about the fight in Puerto Rico where he knocked him down and had him beat and did beat him. Jimmy Young I think he beat Ron Lyle after this Ali fight too. But coming into the Ali fight, there was nothing. He beat Lyle. He had a draw with Ernie Shavers. He beat Jose Luis Garcia, who was a guy who was ranked, Richard Dunn, but nobody thought that he was going to be able to give Ali any kind of trouble. And the thing I remember about this fight was, when you watched it, Jimmy Young kept taking his head and sticking his head outside of the rings. I think this happened like 6 or 7 times where he'd duck his head outside of the ropes whenever Ali pressured him. He did it in, I think, he started in like the 7th round, and by the time you get to like the 12th, 13th round, the referee actually ruled it a knockdown and began to count And then, of course, Young pulled his head back into the ring at the count of 2. And it really, when people sit here and they say they think Young won the fight, I don't see how you can give the fight to a man. I mean, to me, it's unconscionable behavior for a man who wants to be the heavyweight champion of the world whenever somebody gets close to him to stick his head outside of the ring. I know the Associated Press scored this 69-66 for Young. And we had, I think the official scores were like 70-68, 72-65, and the other one was like a 6 or 7 point win too. But I think this is one of those things where since Young put up a better fight than people thought he would, a lot of people mistakenly thought he won the fight, which I don't think there's any way Jimmy Young won the fight. But Jimmy Young was a guy who, when you look back at his career, beat a lot of guys that were really good. He lost to a lot of guys that he never should have lost to. And when you look at him, he beats Ron Lyle after he fights Ali. He beats George Foreman. And then basically the end of his career. And I say this because he never looked like this again. As he fought Ken Norton. And Ali had beaten Norton in a controversial split decision the third time they fought at Yankee Stadium in 1976. And Ali refused to fight or to give Ken Norton another shot. Ken Norton was the number 1 ranked contender. Jimmy Young was ranked number 2, but Ali wouldn't fight him. Ali instead fought Ernie Shavers, and then he was set to fight in February of 78 against Leon Spinks, who eventually would pull one of the biggest upsets in boxing history and beat him. And the WBC decided to make this for their WBC championship. And this was something where the WBC stated that Muhammad Ali had like 60 days to sign the fight, the winner of Norton Young, or he would be stripped of his title, and then whoever won this fight would be proclaimed the title. So it wasn't something where in the ring they were proclaimed the heavyweight champion, but this is how Ken Norton became the heavyweight champion. He won a really close, hard-fought split decision. Actually, I thought Jimmy Young won the fight. And then from there, what happened was Ali lost to Spinks. Ali decided to take a rematch with Spinks. He still wouldn't fight Norton for a 4th time because Norton would have beaten him by then because Ali was just a shell of his former self. Ali had barely beaten him. A lot of people don't think he beat him in 76 when he fought the 3rd time. And basically, Larry Holmes goes on to fight Ken Norton in June. That's before the rematch of Ali Spinks 2. And in one of the greatest heavyweight title fights of all time, Ken Norton loses a close. I mean, it was like every score was 143, 142, one way or the other, split decision to Larry Holmes. Holmes becomes the champion. Ali beats Spinks. Ali retires. And then Ali comes back a couple years later to fight Holmes. And then Holmes, of course, dispatched of him quickly. Jimmy Young was a guy who, after this fight, his problem was, I think it took a lot out of him. I mean, he gets wins against Lyle Foreman. He came close to beating Ali, of course. And Ken Norton, I think he won, but he didn't. And we talked, I don't know if we talked on this show about Ozzy Ocasio or if that was the boxing show, but Ozzy Ocasio was a small heavyweight who upset Jimmy Young on the undercard of the Holmes-Norton show, and then he beat him again in San Juan, Puerto Rico, in Ocasio's backyard. And after that, he was a guy that would go to distance with a lot of guys, but he was never really what he had been. He never got another big win, and he was kind of a guy that floated around, fought till 1990, so he fought 10 years like this, where basically I don't think his heart was really in it, but I think he's one of the most underrated boxers in heavyweight championship history. He was a great defensive fighter, very skillful guy, and it just, I think the way boxing is run just kind of wore his ass out, which it has a tendency to do to guys.
Yeah, and it was on this show that we talked to Ozzy Ocasio. I remember that, and we did talk a little bit about Jimmy Young at that time in reference to Ocasio, and it's amazing to me he fought till 1990. I mean, these guys literally gave everything for their paychecks, over the.
Yeah, and that's why they kept fighting. They needed the money.
Yeah, they needed the money, and I remember reading something about Ali. he was making so much money, let's just say from 75 through 80, I don't think he could stop fighting either.
No. I think his little was, he liked the fame too, but he had a lot of hangers-on that took a lot of money from him. So I think in the end, that is the main reason he continued to fight.
Yeah, and it's why you've said that we'll see Mayweather at some point too.
Probably, unless he does better with his money than those guys did. I mean, if he does, he'll be fine, but it's just the history of boxing will tell you at some point he's probably going to come back just because he has to be able to pay the bills. But for him, fortunately, he made so much money, it may be hard to go ahead and spend all that money, if you know what I mean.
Well, yeah, but I'm hoping to see him back because I don't want to. I'm one of those. I'm not a hater, but I guess maybe I am.
I'm a hater. I don't like him, so I'll admit to it.
Yeah, I don't either. And to me, he's not the greatest ever, and I want to see him can't get beat a couple times.
Yeah, but now anyway, if he gets beat, it won't mean anything because then all of his fans will just say, "Oh, it's because he was old."
Yeah, true.
So, all right, Bobby.
Hey, I want to mention one thing, Mike. If Steve Ridley's listening to us, you know, we don't talk birthdays too much. I list birthdays on my report, but today's Isaiah Thomas is 58. You know, the guy responsible for getting Steve his ring that he shows every day.
Steve had something to do with that. He scored 5 points. And I don't say that jokingly either, because if he wouldn't have scored the 5 points, they'd have only won by 8.
Yep, and Isaiah Thomas turns 58 today. I think Ridley's 61, right, or 60?
Ridley's 60. Don't age him before he needs to be.
All right, so 60. So, yep, Steve was a senior. Isaiah was a sophomore. So, there's your teammate, buddy. You got to send him a birthday card or something.
There you go. All right, guys, we're going to wrap this show up now because I've got to sneeze. It may come right now. Excuse me. I tried to get off in time, but it didn't work out. All right, guys. We will be back inside Boxing Daily tonight, me and Jeremiah, at 11 o'clock, so make sure you check us out then. Me and Steve Risley will be back tomorrow. Bobby, you want to come on and talk NFL or NBA playoffs with us tomorrow with Cole?
Sure.
All right, so tomorrow at noon, you get extra Bobby, which nobody ever gets enough Bobby. So make sure you come check us out at noon tomorrow, where we'll do a little NBA playoff update with me, Cole Hanna, Steve Risley, and Bobby Sheridan. All right, also, tell everybody real quick about the Handicapper's Guide.
Yeah, the handicapping guide is a service, you know, that he gives the rankings for the horses in each race, and basically he takes the rankings from the racing form, and over his years, he's 70-something years old, good friend of mine, and he applies these factors and comes up with a number system and kind of takes your betting field from 8 or 10 horses down to 4, and his numbers say that his data says that, you know, he'll 75% of the time out of his top 4 will come the winner. So he's going to come on Friday this week and do a Derby show. We're going to have a special guest that you're going to want to tune in and listen to in the horse racing field. And it'll be us 4, Mike, having a talk about the 2019 Kentucky Derby. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, that'll be 8 o'clock Eastern Time, Friday night, Kentucky Derby preview. Make sure you go check out the Sheridan Report, at Sheridan Report on Twitter, thesheridanreport.com on the internet. And you can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, Zeno Live Radio, YouTube. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So, for Bobby Sheridan, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.